Here. All right, Jesse, I've got you marked as virtual. Commissioner Mike Burrows. Thank you. District Deputy Commissioner Deitchley.
Here twice.
Yes. Councilman Dwight Fish.
Virtual.
Thank you. Councilman Doug Graham.
Here.
Commissioner Carrie Groninger. Here. Councilwoman Kathy Groninger. No, that one's speak. Councilman Greg Hicksonball.
Here.
Mayor Phil Jenkins.
Here.
District Deputy Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Mayor Gina Lecty.
Here.
Mayor James Mueller. Mayor Rod Robertson.
Here.
Councilman Mark Root. Mayor Mark Center.
Here.
Mayor Joseph Tollimer. Commissioner Susie Wyrick.
Here.
Mayor Dave Wood.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum of members present. We would plan to vote in person today, as long as that's what the board so chooses.
You want a motion for that?
That's unnecessary.
How about the minutes for the November 8th meeting?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Selection of the nominating committee for calendar year 2024.
Yes, so I'm looking for a few volunteers. This is a very prestigious role where you can serve on the nominating committee to help choose our policy board officers for next year. It always looks good on your LinkedIn profile. And it's a good way to be more deeply involved in an organization. This is not that cumbersome of a role. Largely, it is a phone call and maybe an email to help with our selection of officers for next year, as is the tradition or past precedent of our organization. Typically, all officers, as long as they're continuing to be elected officials, all move up. And really, we're filling in maybe one or two roles. So it's not very cumbersome, but I do need usually about 3 folks who are willing to volunteer.
I'm happy to help.
All right, Commissioner, thank you.
I don't know if you want to from Elkhart County, but I'll do it.
All right.
And I'll volunteer as well.
All right. If anyone else later after you leave decides, hey, this is something I really am passionate about and really want to do, please feel free to contact me and we can add you to that nominating committee. And at next month's meeting in January, that committee will report on the officers. Those officers will be considered, and then there will be an election, and those officers will take over at the end of the January meeting. So that's the timeline for the nomination.
This is Councilman Fish. Put me down. I really need to boost my LinkedIn.
All right, Councilman, we can get you at it.
I have to have a LinkedIn though, right? First of all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman. All right. That's all that I had for the nominating committee.
Thank you, James. Financial report, Deb.
Good morning. So you all should have the October financial report. For year-to-date expenses through the end of October, we are at $2,821,816.27, which is about 24% of our budget. Our cash balance at the end of October was $2,581,890.92. And our disbursements for the month of October was $760,706.98. If there are any questions, I could answer those, and if not, I'd like to ask for board approval.
For the financial report.
Second.
We have motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Just a budgetary note, not anything that needs to be approved or looked at, but you'll note in equipment and furniture that always looks like a high line item because it also includes our vehicle rolling stock. So our big buses for the transit services. We have 4 of those vehicles on order, and they're finishing up manufacturing those down in Alabama, and they'll be on their way driving up from Alabama, and hopefully will be an early Christmas/holiday present for us. Maybe 2 of them. The other 2 may come after the new year. So when we get to the December and January financials, you'll start to see that line item drastically tick up very quickly, because right now you're at about $300,000 spent, and the price of those buses is about $2.3 million. So you'll see in the course of a month or 2 that that'll shoot up pretty quick.
James, what's the historical on why we combine furniture with equipment? Why don't we just separate it if equipment is such a heavy weight inside? Is there any reason why we just don't do vehicles and then do furniture separate?
My unfortunate answer is not an answer that I like to provide, but it is the answer that I will provide, and we can take a deeper look at it, but that's the way we've always done it. I don't like that answer. Our staff knows that that's not a pleasant answer for me, but yeah, we can take a look at that.
I mean, that way you don't have to look at it with a crooked eye.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
Just
Secretary Jenkins.
Yes, you have the modifications in your report. If you have any questions on any of those, all those are administrative in nature. Contact that.
Thank you. Old business, James?
I have no old business today.
How about new business?
New business. Yes, we have a few transportation resolutions that Dana will be presenting for us.
Morning.
Morning.
We have 3 items for transportation resolution 35-23. The first is NDOT initiated, located on US 33 from 4.9 miles south of State Road 15 to 1 mile south of State Road 15. And the action is adding the P phase to the tip, as well as increasing federal funding and moving out fiscal years for the construction phase. This project was originally programmed for the construction phase for the end of 2026, fiscal year 2026, with a letting date in September, but will be moved largely to fiscal year 2027. Our second initiated, located along Sunnyside Avenue and Mall Drive at US 33 over the Norfolk Southern Railroad. And the action is adding the project to the tip. However, this is already an existing project. And is the part of the local tracks project for Elkhart County. We're just adding the DUNS number for city sewer location. Last item is sponsored by the city of Mishawaka. It's located on 12th Street from Merrifield Avenue to Campbell Street, with the action of changing termini to decreasing project length by 0.51 miles. This project is being decreased as a result from cost inflation and some environmental considerations it's going through. So we just ask for approval of these actions.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
All right, resolution 3623, I'll take the pleasure in presenting. This resolution is related to safety performance measures. The board will recall that this is an annual item that is presented since MAP 21, the legislation back in the day that started to introduce performance measures back into the transportation kind of funding program. One of those performance measures that has been around is related to safety. It looks at a whole myriad of different areas within safety. These numbers are for the entire state of Indiana. It's fatalities, rate of fatalities per 100 million, number of serious injuries, rate of serious injuries per 100 million, and then the number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. Those are the vulnerable kind of road users, walkers, bikers, those kind of folks. This is something that the MPOs like MACOG work with the state. We look at that data. It's 5-year moving average. The state then presents its performance measure. The state has worked with us to present the 2024 performance measures. And those are presented here. The number of fatalities, 876.3, the rate of fatalities per 100 million, 0.72, number of serious injuries, 3,281, rate of serious injuries per 100 million miles, 3.987, and number of non-motorist fatalities and serious injuries, 391.6. The MPOs have the choice to either develop their own target or to support the state's target. We and this board have selected for many years to select the state target, and that is staff's recommendation to support that state target. The state trend-wise, we're seeing fatalities go up. The target is to see those go down, but across the state and really across the country, fatalities and serious injuries have started to rise again. And so, you know, that means that we work on projects related to safety and getting those programmed. So that is one of those items that state has been working on, and recently the state didn't achieve one of its targets, and so now they're having to do this vulnerable road users plan that we talked about last month and really start to dig in to where fatalities and serious injuries are happening for the non-motorists, for vulnerable road users. And so you can start to see how they're going to be programming dollars specifically towards those topics. But I'm happy to answer any question related to this, but it is our recommendation to support the state's target. I do have data as well for our local region. We don't create a regional target at this point, but we do have that information so we can benchmark it. We also have the dashboard where folks can go and look at all the serious injuries and fatalities that happen for non-motorists. Our vulnerable road users dashboard, as well as all fatalities and serious injuries in the region for all types. So all of that information we have, it's just we're choosing to work with the state target here. Happy to answer any questions.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anything? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. And 3723, James?
Yeah, 3723. We have a resolution here to exercise the second one-year extension of an agreement for professional services with Thornton Grodnick. Thornton Grodnick is our legal counsel. Mike is hiding in that corner. There he is. Mike Trimble. He has provided us with great legal advice over the years. We are at the point that this would be the last second 1 year. It is the last 1 year extension that we have available, I think is the best way to phrase that. And so in 2024, we will put out a procurement opportunity as is our kind of policy. But from a staff perspective, we've been pleased with our legal counsel, and we would be recommending to exercise that 1 year option, the second one of them, for this contract.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thanks, James. Staff update, Jeremiah Cox.
Hello, just a quick update. Right now, INDOT is looking for Section 5310 grant applications. These are specifically targeting vehicles for 5310 eligible applicants are social service agencies primarily that specialize in transporting and providing services to the elderly and people with disabilities. Examples of previous recipients include, for example, Elder House in Napanee, Elkhart County Council on Aging. And so right now that grant application is open. So if you have any social service agencies that you think could benefit from funding for vehicles, please direct them to us, and we can assist with filling out the application. And in the next couple of months, I'll be coming back to policy board for endorsement of those applications. I do want to mention that this program doesn't apply to St. Joseph County. We directly manage that 5310 call ourselves. So it'll be a call for those agencies in St. Joe County again next summer. So for the other 3 more rural counties. Any questions?
Thank you, Jeremiah. Leah,
Yes, I have an update on a new grant opportunity. There are 2 pieces to this energy efficiency and conservation block grant program. There's the formula program, so the larger community, South Bend, Mishawaka, Elkhart, St. Joseph County, Kosciuszko County, and Elkhart County actually are receiving directly funding that they'll apply for through the Department of Energy. The other communities all have an opportunity to compete for the state pass-through grants. Those are open now, and the deadline is February 2nd, whereas if you are a formula community that I just mentioned, your deadline is April 30th of 2024. We have been going on a little tour around the region and meeting with a lot of small towns, and we're working on 10 applications currently, but that also includes Napanee, includes Goshen, and Plymouth, as well as 6 or 7 other small towns. So if there's an interest in this opportunity, it's primarily energy efficiency or electric vehicles. You can't mix and match, you have to pick one track or the other. So if you have building needs or fleet needs, come talk to me after this meeting. So next slide. The second opportunity is just a heads up for next year. These grants and programs are, the deadline's either passed or will be coming soon. So it's not really for you to apply this year, but for future years, just to be aware that there are community forestry grants for your urban tree canopies. And currently we're working with Culver and Plymouth and Warsaw to apply this year. But there's a program through Indiana University where they'll provide you with an intern. They'll provide you with 100 trees and assist you in developing a planting plan. That's a lot more facilitated than the Indiana DNR grant, where you would manage that process yourself and the procurement of consultants. IU would be more hands-off and just get the benefits of that program directly. There are some limitations on who is eligible. You have to have disadvantaged census tracts within your community, or the county could apply as a whole in order to spread out the benefits a little bit more. So if you have any questions about the tree grants, I'm happy to talk after this meeting.
thank you, Leah. Caitlin,
Good morning. I wanted to give a quick update on the Community Crossings Matching Grant Program for this next year. This program, as we're very familiar with over the past several years, is for road preservation projects. This coming year, INDOT just announced that they'll be doing a pilot program through the calendar year, and they'll be increasing their matching award from $1 million to $1.5 million as the cap. So that's something that will be new this coming year, and hopefully something that our communities can take advantage of for this current round. The call will be opening up January 2nd, closing at the end of the month. And as always, we're happy to help with the process. And then kind of from the USD perspective, they just came out with one of their largest kind of discretionary grant programs, the RAISE grant program. That's $1.5 billion in funding, able to be used for planning and construction of surface transportation projects, road, rail, trail, transit, those type of things, with a specific focus on sustainability and equity. That has a little bit longer time frame, but those applications are due at the end of February. And just a little bit, about 15 million is supposed to be allocated for areas of persistent poverty or historically disadvantaged communities. And then half of it will be distributed to urban and rural areas equally. We're kind of internally discussing about potentially preparing an application for the planning study of the trail connection from Mishawaka to Elkhart. So we're currently kind of trying to evaluate that, but would also like to have conversations with your jurisdictions to see if there's any potential projects that we might be a good fit for this program. So
I'm assuming you're working with Mishawaka.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Caitlin.
No, you're fine.
Jenny, you're back up.
I just quickly wanted to give an announcement about the upcoming quarterly tracking and review meeting that'll be taking place on January 11th. We will be sending out an email informing like due dates of the forms this week. So be on the lookout for that. But if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to me or Caitlin for that.
Thank you. You're back up, Caitlin.
Yes, back up. I think this is the last time though. I wanted to give you a little information about where the Propel US 30 and US 31 studies are. Back in November, they released their kind of draft universe of alternatives, which is very broad level potential concepts that can be used to address the purpose and needs that have been drafted for those corridors. And so those are currently online and able to review. They're collecting comments and input until December 22nd. So a few more weeks. I think both corridors kind of started with a total of 55 concepts. I do have kind of a quick breakdown of each corridor and which concepts moved forward. So for the US 30 corridor, they ended up carrying forward 33 concepts. And so this includes things like corridor improvements, off-corridor improvements, intersection improvements, and the like. I won't go through the list because it's rather lengthy. And then the US 31 corridor carried forward 25 concepts. And so this is just kind of the first step of this analysis, and they'll be delving into later specific locations and more detailed evaluation in the future.
I do want to point out that with this, this is an important study that the state is doing, but the state has stated multiple times now that projects that advance out of Propel will most likely be funded through the normal annual call that NDOT holds. And if you're not familiar, NDOT has an internal process where they do a call for projects, where the districts submit projects into the overall state for evaluation. It's across a series of different topics. There's a mobility program, there's a safety program, etc. The state is currently doing, or has recently started doing, projects for 2029. So I do just want to point out that this study doesn't wrap up until the end of, say, next year. So the earliest some of these potential projects may move forward would be construction in 2030, based on what the state has said. So I think it's just important to continue to stay involved in this, to understand where this is going, and to continue to push for the alternatives that really the local communities are wanting in these areas, because improvements are needed. Traffic continues to grow. Safety continues to be a challenge. And so potentially many of these projects may not come until the earliest of 2030, which is quite a while from now. Now, of course, some projects may be accelerated. We already see the projects that are over by Sweetwater and the Amazon facility. Those are moving forward. Over near Fort Wayne, US 31 and State Road 10 is moving forward, those kind of things. But I think just the other day there was either serious injury or fatality at State Road 110.
Two within 2 weeks.
Yeah. So, there continues to be safety challenges along the corridor, but a lot of these projects, based on what I've heard from NDOT so far, there's going to be another year of whittling down the universe, and this is a full universe of alternatives, looking at pretty much all the options that are out there, down to maybe some top options. They're not going to have preferred options for every location. That's not their intent. And so as we move to level 2 and level 3, realize that we don't get to the final at the end of 2024. We also changed governors, going from 24 to 25. And then the call for projects would be that next step, that's not on this flow chart. That would be projects moving forward. And we understand design and construction and all that, or design right of way construction takes 4 years or so. And so it's not unreasonable to assume a project in 24, 25 isn't built until 2030. But that is a long time from now. So just want to make sure that folks are fully up to speed on where this is at.
With respect to the two projects you highlighted, how quickly are those going to be let?
Yeah,
They're fast tracked outside of this major call.
Matt, not to put you on the spot, but
Sorry, Matt.
putting you on the spot, 31 and State Road 10 targeted letting fiscal 20.
I thought it was 26, I believe.
28?
Letting?
I believe it's construction year.
Yeah, construction year.
Okay,
Construction.
construction year 20, but letting in 26.
Yes.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
And then the bridge project is still underway.
Yeah.
That's something that should be done at the end of next year, I believe. So those projects are ongoing.
Yeah, the railroad overpass, where the one student lost their life. That one is under construction currently.
Yes.
Winterized right now, but it's the season.
James, I do think that the one over at Amazon, I think does that go out next year or is that the following? No, I was thinking.
Mr. Johnson, are you online?
Yes.
What? All right. Not to put you on the spot, but putting you on the spot. The Sweetwater, Flaw Road area, do you know when that is supposed to be under construction?
I believe it's got a late next year, award and probably be construction the following year. So 25 is the earliest.
All right.
And there's a couple adjustments still being made. So that we may have to adjust the date too.
Sure.
James, also just FYI from the US 30 coalition side, I know that the mayor's intent, he is, not running or isn't going to be mayor here after the first of the year, but his intent is to stay on the US 30 coalition as the chair, to continue to push that forward for the corridor there. So I do think that, as we see opportunities to meet with our state reps and senators, continue to make them aware of just how important this is to our region, that 7 years or 6 years or whatever the construction really isn't acceptable. Somehow we got to figure out ways to be able to move some of these key projects up. I think every one of us here in our communities have some intersections that we're seeing our residents die on a regular basis. That's just not a good thing.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. And the one thing that I guess was a little disheartened by was hearing that these projects would still compete in the regular call for projects. That puts, I don't know how many applications each district puts in every year in every call, but with multiple lengths and multiple corridors, multiple intersections, you're talking the earliest is 6 or 7 years.
And considering they're missing their safety targets, it just seems counterintuitive.
Well, for what it's worth too, I would like to mention from a safety project standpoint, the projects that are awarded for our safety projects are the greatest need across the state. So that's not to say these aren't, but if the need is great, that's where the money goes. That's where projects go. And like James mentioned, there's always the possibility of expedite. We're still early in this process, so I would encourage folks not to look at the worst case scenario yet. We try to do the best thing we can do when we need to get it done. So we're going to continue the develop process, and once that is done, that's when we'll reevaluate things and see where it can go.
I'll definitely try to remember that, and I do apologize for being upset about it. But even a letting in 2026 when there's additional, how many fatalities are going to need to happen before these get let in a reasonable time frame? We've been talking about this particular intersection for the past 10 years.
Well, listen,
and
this isn't directed at you,
Yeah.
Susie, by any means, but I would be remiss if I forgive my grandstanding for a moment, but I was one of those folks who stood up there when we tried to do the J Trans at 10 and 110, and I took a lot of heat for that, and I was happy to do it. I wish we had done that. because that would be some safety feature we would have right now while we're waiting for this. Now, that's behind us. Nothing we can do about it right now, but we've tried. So I will tell you this much though. This is my district and I take it very seriously. It's important to me. That 110 accident happened last week. I drove through it when it was happening. So I take this very seriously and I will fight to make sure we put our safety dollars where they need to go. I can't promise that's going to be exactly where everyone at this table wants it to be, but I will work very hard to make sure we're being as safe as possible with our spend. But I share your concern, and I will continue to fight to make sure our areas are the safest possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I do think our corridor, we do have some intersections that should rank pretty high in the grand scheme of things that really need to be addressed, because I think there's some in Marshall County, Queen and King. I think they did have some improvements they were going to try and do there. They kind of got put on hold until the study got complete.
Sure.
As well as I know that Kosciuszko County, there's a couple of intersections there that they want to do something, but I think this study hopefully will give them a broader picture of holistic how they need to do these improvements that are going to help us long-term versus a kind of a Band-Aid for now.
Well, for what it's worth too, things like Queen and King, it's not like we set fire to those plans. So
Right.
if this gets completed and we have a leg up on certain projects we've already had begun designing, that's going to help expedite things as well. So we're not going to start from scratch completely when this is done. We still have some plans from what we've done before, depending on what the PEL comes up with.
Right.
And just a question, I'd seen that the mid-states, the NDOT announced that it was doing an EIS for the corridor. So are the projects that are coming out of mid-states, PEL was originally done, are those going to be competing through the regular call, or are those
possibly? I don't know.
With an issuance of an EIS, which is an environmental impact study, for those not familiar, it seems like they're going at it from a corridor-based approach, which feels much more like what happened with the first phase of US 31. And it just seems like there are different approaches for corridors.
Sure.
So,
well, we always try to do a corridor approach if we can, but we do break things off if need be too. So typically that's the lens we want to look through. But if we're needing to focus on one specific intersectional thing, we're always able to do that as well.
He has a lot to do with who ends up being governor.
Okay, Caitlin, you have another one there, right?
Yes, I do. One transportation planning process that we're looking forward to getting started next year is our regional safety action plan. We've received a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant this year to complete this process. Currently, we have a request for proposals out seeking kind of consultant services to assist us with this plan. We'll be holding a pre-bid or pre-submission meeting next week to answer any further questions from consultants. And then we're seeking proposals by January 5th. And our large goal is to really have a selection by early February so we can kind of get this plan started in early 2024.
Another request for proposals that is out there. MACOG oversees the operations of the interurban trolley services, both the fixed route bus service as well as our paratransit service. We issue that about once every 5 years. That contract is due. And so we have a request for proposals that is out on the street right now. It was issued just a few weeks ago, and the due date for that set of proposals is January 8th. Hope to have a vendor selected in the February timeframe. And so we'll make the board aware of how that process plays out, but that RFP, that request for proposals for the overall operation of services is out there. We often are looking for what we would call turnkey. We provide the vehicles, but we need someone who's providing the maintenance, the facility, the drivers, those kind of items. And so that RFP is out there right now.
Do we have multiple people interested, or is it?
We send it out to a wide swath of people, national vendors as well as local vendors, charter services, et cetera. I don't know that we've heard back from a lot of folks. We've heard back from 3. So we always like to see
3 or 4 vendors submit. 3 may not actually end up submitting. We'll find out. But we send it out to a wide swath and hope for the most amount of interest so that we have overall good competition. But
yeah,
we'll see. Yeah.
Right now, an increase of inflation on a lot of things just pretty scary to have to reset your.
Yep. Yeah, we did offer some different options, especially on the paratransit side, where we're looking at some different pricing models than what we've done in the past. And so hopefully that'll lead to some better improvements as well.
Good. You have the last 2 as well.
All right, I'll keep rolling. This is a newer item I wanted to make you aware of, which is a regional housing study. Back under the FAST Act, which is the current or the infrastructure bill, I should say, the current kind of guiding law for the transportation planning program. There was an explicit mandate that said MPOs like MACOG should look at housing and its overall linkages to transportation. This has always been something that we've asked our division office of Federal Highway, could we do this? And they've always been very cagey over the last few years of, well, how exactly is it transportation? And we've made the argument that housing is usually an origin or destination that starts your day or ends your day. But it was something that I feel like we always struggled with our division office. Apparently other folks did across the country as well, which is why this got inserted directly into the law that says that we are supposed to look at this kind of stuff now. While we were talking about it internally of what we might do, we had a conversation with the partnership, the South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership, as well as some of the community foundations. The community foundations made us aware that the Lilly Foundation had a program open for regional plans. And so we worked with the St. Joe, Elkhart, and Marshall Community Foundations in partnership to look at doing a housing study. It would be for those 3 counties at this point. Happy to have further conversations about what makes sense in Kosciuszko County. Because it was this joint effort with the partnership and those kind of items, that's why it's kind of taken on this 3-county approach. The Lilly Foundation did fund that. And so we do have funding that will look at doing a regional housing study. We have an RFP in draft form that we're going to be workshopping that with the partnership as well as those foundations to talk through having some contractual services hired out to do this. We realize that many of you have individual community-based housing studies. We're going to use those and source those and start there and then build on this to look at it from a more regional perspective. Some of those are older, some of those are newer. So, we felt like it was something that would be worth doing. There hasn't really been one done from a regional perspective, as well as the partnership and the RDA see value in this also informing potentially ready investments moving forward and strengthening arguments around housing there. So happy to answer any questions. It has moved a lot quicker than I anticipated, largely due to the seed funding coming through from Lilly. I had about 8 days to write that from when we found out there was a potential for it. And so it ended up working out really well, but happy to answer any questions related to that. We don't have that posted yet because the draft is still being worked through, but we anticipate having that posted in the early part of 2024.
Good.
Just from, excuse me, just from the St. Joe County's perspective, we are one of the groups that are moving ahead with a limited housing study for Northwest St. Joe County, obviously around the jam plant and the concerns about inadequate amount of housing in that area. Just want to make sure we're not duplicating or.
We've been talking with Abby and Frank and the folks over on 11 with IPG, and we're aware of where they're at, and we'll continue to coordinate with them.
Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You have one more there?
Last item, last week, this was an odd announcement
feels like it rolled out kind of in segments. It was difficult to get a corridor list for about a week, even though announcements were kind of out there. But FRA did announce their corridor ID program. You'll recall that MACOG was a part of two different corridors. The corridor that was Chicago through South Bend and Elkhart, Toledo to Cleveland, as well as then the corridor of Chicago through Plymouth and Warsaw, through Fort Wayne to Columbus and Pittsburgh. We've been a part of both of those coalitions. Mixed results here for our region. Happy that the Chicago through Warsaw, or Plymouth and Warsaw and Fort Wayne, that corridor is selected. It will receive a $500,000 planning grant to talk about what type of investments would need to be made to provide passenger rail service, which would restore passenger rail service to Fort Wayne and provide passenger rail service to Columbus, connecting our communities of Warsaw and Plymouth through to Chicago, as well as east to Cleveland, and providing better rail connectivity for the unfortunate South Bend Elkhart location. That corridor, which has existing service, was not selected to look at how to improve that service. We were really hopeful for that, especially talking about some of our downtown Amtrak facilities, like in South Bend or in Elkhart, about ways to improve those. We'll continue to pursue those options in other programs. But there is also a longer study that looks at that area that Amtrak, I think, is going to be doing in 2024, I want to say. So we'll look to participate in that. But just wanted to make folks aware. So staff will be spending some time with the Chicago, Fort Wayne, Columbus, Pittsburgh coalition. They've been great partners over the years. We've looked at different things with them. We looked at high-speed rail, as well as we went out to Nevada to see Hyperloop with them. So we've worked with them for years, and we'll continue to work with them on this program. Great coordination. I know we already have some regional meetings set up with them to talk about next steps, but that will be looking at that service more through Plymouth and Warsaw in our area. So that would conclude our, nope, it doesn't. I forgot.
Yeah, one more.
One more. See, you said two, and all right. Lastly, am excited about Serve Indiana had a recent statewide conference. At that conference, they announced awards for different AmeriCorps-based awards in the state of Indiana. Our region actually received 2 awards. Amber Werner received the Outstanding Program Director of the Year Award for AmeriCorps, as well as Dr. Kate Barrett, who works with the St. Joseph River Basin Commission. She's our aquatic ecologist. She received the Outstanding AmeriCorps Alum Award. And so we were just really pleased and honored that 2 of our employees received those awards and were recognized, as well as the city of Goshen was recognized as their outstanding work for being a site host. So thank you for that. So our region kind of cleaned up on awards and recognition with Serve Indiana, but the AmeriCorps program, you met many of those first year members last year, even more members this year. So we look forward to recapping that in 2024 as those member years close out, but has been a very successful program thus far.
Thank you, sir. And the privilege of the floor.
I am going to take a privilege of the floor because I've been told that it might be someone's last meeting. And I just want to thank you, not only for completing your year as board chair, but you are one of the last 2 members that are on our policy board that have been on our policy board since I started in 2008.
Yeah.
So after what now, it's been 16 years,
just want to thank you for your service, everything you've done for Plymouth and everything you've done for MACOG. Just want to say thank you and present you with this plaque here.
Appreciate that.
And just want to say thanks, and we can. Do you want to stand?
Sure.
Might as well stand. It'll be a better photo.
Yeah. I thought it'd be suburban maybe, but.
Later.
I didn't know if you wanted to say anything or.
I do have a few things. First of all, there's a young man sitting on the back row there that I need to speak of, and that's Donnie Ritzma, who did an awesome job with our Plymouth community, our Plymouth Comp Plan 2040. Him and some of the other staff here, and I can't say enough about that. He was down at Plymouth more than some Plymouth residents, I think, in the last couple of years, so year and a half. So thank you, Donnie, for that. Truly appreciate it. I also want to introduce the next mayor of Plymouth, Robert Listenberger, right here. And his city attorney will be Jeff Hillian in the green shirt there. And I brought my city attorney the last 12 years, and he will be going out with me in a few weeks. So truly appreciate it. And I remember, I don't know if you were there, but I didn't have any transition when I took over. My predecessor wasn't very happy with me beating him, so there was no transition. But I remember, I don't know if you were there, but Sandy Senor came down to Plymouth and met her for the first time, and she said, "Do you know what MACOG does?" And I said, "Well, I think you help us." That was my answer, and so here we are 16 years later, and you're still helping us, and we truly appreciate that. And I think Carrie is the next in line, right? So I don't have to come to the January meeting, right? Okay.
That's up to you. That's up to you.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
On behalf of all of us, thank you for everything that you've done for your community as well as the region and the organization. So thank you.
Thank you. And how about public comment? Nothing? How about an adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Thanks, Carrie. Appreciate it.